Hey, new autism movie just hit theaters. What'd you think of Ezra? Oh no.
As an autistic person who is a filmmaker and also a disability representation consultant, and as a parent of autistic kids, Ezra is a behaviorism wet dream.
Behaviorism?
Your autistic behavior is causing problems for us normal people, so we're going to bribe, scold, shame, pressure, manipulate, and trauma response the behavior out of you.
Yikes, but I thought they did everything right. Like they said they were working with the autism community.
Let's start with the good.
Okay.
The film did a great job showing how the systems in our society are not at all there to help autistic people or parents of autistic people.
Hey, that's something.
Right? And it did it in a well-written way. One where we actually experience those issues rather than just being told that there are issues. So kudos to the writing of that. They showed how the system doesn't even look into the causes behind behavior, but defaults to punishment and control, both of the child and of the parent's rights. And when a parent acts in anger against the system
punishes them.
It shows how the system can force psyche evals on children where stressful and inappropriate questions are asked of them. It demonstrates how the system can forcibly incarcerate people for medical conditions. It shows how school systems can refuse to educate disabled people, and how disabled kids are often expelled and then segregated away from normal people.
It's all really great to have clearly represented.
Except that last one brings me to my first criticism.
Uh-oh.
The beginning of the film has the father character fighting against his son's expulsion, and against what is called the special needs school.
I take it you take issue with the term special needs?
For starters, sure. We should be using accessible education, not special needs, but that's comparatively a nitpick. By the end of the film, the father has endorsed this new school, and it is painted as being a good and proper thing in many ways.
That seems to conflict with the theme.
It's in conflict with what the theme should have been. But really, it's one example of what the theme of the film actually turned out to be.
Oh no. Which is?
Parenting autistic kids is hard, but good for you for trying.
Ah, the old abled savior story.
That's the vibe. And then endorsing shitty parenting of behaviorism while making behaviorism look like good parenting when it's so harmful.
Give me an example of this behaviorism in the film.
So, from the start of the film, it establishes 3 sensory issues that Ezra has. 1, he doesn't like eating with metal utensils because it hurts his teeth. 2, he doesn't like eye contact. And 3, he doesn't like being touched, especially hugged.
Those all seem relatively common among some autistic people.
Right. So in the beginning of the film, he eats with a plastic fork. You know, an accommodation.
Good job, Mom.
But then in the middle of the film, his dad and others pressure and coerce Ezra to try and eat at least 1 bite with the metal fork, saying that if he agrees, then he can use his hands. Even though they say they do have plastic utensils in the kitchen.
What? Why?
Because the dad's a controlling ass? Then towards the end of the film, Ezra meets this girl that he's obviously into, and she offers him ice cream on a metal spoon.
And Ezra eats it?
It was hard for him, but look at how much he's grown. If you just give autistic kids the right motivation, they can overcome their autism.
Gross.
So inappropriate. What's wrong with having an accommodation to eat with plastic utensils? The kid isn't faking his pain from metal cutlery.
So how do they handle eye contact?
At the beginning of the film, he doesn't make eye contact. And nobody really makes him.
So how it should be.
Towards the first third of the film, his dad bribes him with taking him to go trick-or-treating at some nebulous point in the future if his son will do a staring contest.
Wait, for what reason?
Because his dad's a controlling ass?
So I bet as the film goes on, they come up with excuses for Ezra to want to make eye contact?
Remember that girl he likes? She introduces him to a horse, and teaches Ezra how to approach the horse and how it is important to make eye contact because that is how horses connect with you.
For so many animals, eye contact is seen as a threat, not connection.
Exactly, and the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine published a study in the Journal of Equine Veterinary Service that there was no difference in outcome when approaching a horse, whether eye contact is made or not.
So it was literally just a storytelling device to force an autistic kid to learn how to make eye contact.
But it gets worse. In the end, when police tackle Ezra's dad to the ground, and his dad starts having an autistic... The movie calls it meltdowns, but I prefer overloads so as not to be infantilizing.
Wait, his dad is autistic?
It is hinted at throughout the film that it is likely, which is one of the things I would have liked about the film if they had handled it equitably.
So Ezra's dad is having this overload.
And Ezra tackles the police officer off of his dad and then calms his dad by making intense eye contact.
Weird and unrealistic in a couple of ways.
Right? And a storytelling device that doesn't really work in real life and communicates a theme that autistic kids can and will, as long as we give them big enough motivation, overcome their autistic traits.
Oh, I hate to even ask, but how do they handle the hug?
Throughout the film, the dad has this obsession with needing a hug from his son. And it's depicted as if this is a crucial thing for the dad to be okay and necessary for his feeling of emotional connection with Ezra.
Let me guess. The film didn't show the dad having an arc of learning how to connect with his son in ways that his son naturally connects through.
And depict the double empathy problem? No! Instead, once again, the dad tries to sneak hugs, breaking his son's clearly communicated boundaries and invading his personal space.
So as the film continues, the son allows more hugs?
Yep. First, Dad sneaks one when he thinks Ezra is asleep, but then Ezra is awake, and so he half allows it. Then...
Wait. With the girl he likes.
You could write bad movies.
It seems the girl's only purpose in this narrative is to be a romantic interest that fixes what's wrong with her male counterpart.
And what's wrong is his autistic traits.
Oh boy.
Then, back to the hugs. In that same scene where his dad is arrested, after the weird eye contact, Ezra gives his dad a big hug because that's what his dad needs, regardless of Ezra's own personal needs in that moment.
Sounds like codependence on the part of the dad.
Watching this scene triggered a flashback from all the times I was conditioned to break my own boundaries in order to make someone else feel comfortable so that I could feel safe.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
I went into this prepared for that potential. So then the film ends with Ezra's dad dropping him off at his special school, and him willingly, if it was uncomfortably, giving his dad a hug.
Oh, how sweet it can be when we teach autistic people to sacrifice their boundaries.
Yeah, the film seems to say that autistic kids don't have any rights to boundaries or accommodations. They need to act like non-autistic kids so that we can extract the love from them that we are entitled to as parents.
That is really, really, really disappointing.
So the theme, let me read you some quotes. Ezra's mom says, Ezra's dad doesn't know how to control Ezzy. His dad says, I don't want him in his own world, I want him in this world. And then again later he says, I need him. He keeps my feet on the ground. And finally, from Ezra's own mouth, why did you take me if you don't know how to help me?
Ouch! Talk about endorsing the idea that autistic kids need to be fixed and controlled.
Yeah, the lack of scenes and dialogue and situations to contradict these statements makes them the theme, which is so ick. But wait, there's more. Sheesh. Can we please stop telling stories where the disabled character is just a MacGuffin?
MacGuffin.
A MacGuffin is something, can be object, event, character, that serves to keep the plot in motion despite lacking much intrinsic importance.
How can Ezra be a MacGuffin? The film's named after him.
The Maltese Falcon is the MacGuffin of the Maltese Falcon. John Malkovich of being John Malkovich. Private Ryan of Saving Private Ryan. Then there's the Wizard of Oz, the Fifth Element, Waiting for Guffman.
Okay, I get it.
Ezra is a side character about which everyone fights over what to do with. He has zero say of his own.
Ouch.
If you've watched many of my other film reviews on disability representation, you'll notice that this is a common theme.
The disabled characters don't have agency.
And if we have to see the autism is so hard part, it should be societal and individual ableism that is the hard part, not always the autism itself, you know?
Okay, but like films about the challenges of parenting an autistic kid can be okay, right?
I've never seen one that has represented that relationship equitably. The closest would be Flying Lessons, which isn't even out yet, and technically the character isn't the parent, and it avoids those pitfalls.
How?
It was written and directed by an actually autistic filmmaker. Go figure! Unless you purposefully break the tropes, the premise, challenges of parenting an autistic kid, itself sidelines the autistic person's point of view.
But the writer-producer of Ezra has an autistic kid. Shouldn't they, like, get it and be an ally?
Look, just because you have an autistic kid doesn't mean you're not ableist as fuck. Chances are, if you have an autistic kid, you probably are ableist as fuck. Most of the population is ableist as fuck. Only ones who aren't are those who have intentionally fought those demons and spent years educating themselves and dismantling those subconscious or even conscious beliefs. I mean, if you don't know parents of autistic kids, look at how most celebrities who have autistic kids talk about their autistic kids.
Like who?
Let me put it this way. If you want your autistic audience to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel heard in your movie about autism, you don't hire Robert fucking De Niro as one of its stars.
Really? What?
He has an autistic son, and despite claiming not to be anti-vax, De Niro says he thinks there is a link between vaccines and autism, despite all scientific evidence saying otherwise. He says a vaccine caused his son to change overnight into being autistic, which I'm going to have a video coming out to explain potentially why that happens. But his phrasing and framing on his son being autistic on multiple occasions has implied autism changed his son from being, his son into something that wasn't. Like, that autism was this thing, a barrier between him and his son.
Kind of like how it's portrayed in Ezra?
Exactly. And I'd love to sit down and chat with De Niro, out of the public eye, talk to him about autism, hear his views and experiences, but maybe also help him understand and see some things from a different perspective. But he's done direct harm to the autistic community, and he's never addressed that harm. I'd love for him to become an ally.
It sucks this movie focuses on Ezra's dad, and we never see things from Ezra's perspective.
Well, at least they cast an actually autistic actor to play the autistic character of Ezra. It's an improvement.